Man in Gray here with another Man in Gray book review. Today's book is The Poky Little Puppy by Jeanette Sebring Lowry with illustrations by Gustav Tenggren. This book was originally published in 1942 by Simon & Schuster. It's now published by Random House, and it's 24 pages long. This book was one of the original 12 volumes in the Little Golden Book series. This was a children's book series that was rolled out in 1942, and the idea was to produce short, little hardback children's books in full color that only cost 25 cents. So the idea was let's make children's books affordable so that everybody can buy them, and let's make them durable enough that kids can read them over and over again without them falling apart. This was a wildly successful series. There's hundreds of books in the Little Golden Book series, but this was one of the original ones. And today they cost, in American dollars, they're around $5 in America now. So they've gone up from 25 cents to $5, which is a lot. That's a lot of inflation. But that's not bad for 80 years, and these are still pretty cheap compared to a lot of other kids' books, which is one of the secrets to their success. Now, if I were to ask you, what is the biggest selling hardback children's book ever in American history? What's the most successful children's hardback book in American history? You might think, well, it's got to be Cat in the Hat, or Green Eggs and Ham, or How the Grinch Stole Christmas, or Where the Wild Things Are, maybe, or The Giving Tree, perhaps, or maybe Charlotte's Web, but you'd be wrong about all of those. The biggest selling children's hardback book of all time in the United States is The Poky Little Puppy. Now, there's a double irony about this. Neither the author nor the illustrator became famous, even though they collaborated on the single most successful children's book in American history. Their names are not on the cover. In fact, none of the Little Golden Books have authors' names on the cover. Jeanette Sebring Lowry was a writer born in Orange, Texas. She spent her entire life in Texas, settling eventually in San Antonio. She wrote a number of other books, including a retelling of Greek myths. And in 1950, she published a YA novel called Margaret, which sold pretty well and was turned into a TV episode by Walt Disney. But when Sebring Lowry died in 1986 at the age of 94, her death was completely ignored by the media. She spent her entire life in obscurity, even though she wrote this massively successful children's book. The same thing happened with the illustrator, Gustav Tenggren. Gustav Tenggren was born in Sweden. He came to the United States as a young man and got a job as an artist at the Walt Disney Studio. And he was what they called a concept artist. He worked as a concept artist on Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. He would draw characters and stuff. The animators would describe what they wanted, what they thought, and he would draw characters to kind of give them an idea of what it might look like. After the movie came out, or shortly before the movie came out, he was hired to do the illustrations for a book version of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs that was sold in conjunction with the movie's release. And he also illustrated a number of publicity material, advertisements and posters and so forth. After Tenggren left the Disney studio, he was hired by Simon & Schuster to illustrate books in the Little Golden Book series. Among the other books that he illustrated for Little Golden Books was The Shy Little Kitten, which is another famous Little Golden Book, and The Saggy Baggy Elephant. Tenggren died in 1970 at the age of 73, and his death also went unremarked by the media. So both of the writer and the illustrator, lived pretty much their whole lives in obscurity, even though they wrote this massively popular book. Well, if you've never read this book, or if you didn't have it read to you as a child, let me go through the plot. It's actually a pretty simple story. There are 5 little puppies, and one day, late in the afternoon, they dig a hole under the backyard fence and escape. They go out to explore the world, and they find a large hill. So they climb up to the top of the hill to look and see what's going on. Except for one puppy. The Poky Little Puppy stays behind at the base of the hill, and he's sniffing something. And so the other 4 puppies realize he's not with them, so they come down to see what their brother's doing, and he says, "I'm smelling rice pudding." And so the dogs say, "Wow, Mom must be making rice pudding for us." So they all tear off to go back home, and they crawl under the fence. But Mom has realized that they have dug a hole in the fence and escaped, and so she puts them to bed without any rice pudding. But the Poky Little Puppy is so slow that he comes home after everyone's gone to bed, and he gets to eat all that rice pudding by himself because he was so slow. The next day, a sign is put up saying, "Don't dig holes under the fence." But the puppies do the same thing again. They go back to the hill. Once again, the Poky Little Puppy stays behind. They come down to see what he's doing. This time, he has his ear to the ground, and he hears a spoon ladling out chocolate pudding. So the dogs all run off to eat chocolate pudding. Now, you're probably thinking, wait a minute, chocolate's toxic to dogs. You shouldn't feed chocolate pudding to dogs. Well, that's right. Probably either Jeanette Sebring Lowry didn't own a dog or she didn't know how to take care of him, because you really shouldn't feed chocolate pudding to a dog. So if you read this story to a child, you might want to change the chocolate to like vanilla pudding or something. Or if you decide to actually read what's in here, you need to tell them, don't give chocolate to a dog. But anyway, the same thing happens. The dogs come home. Mom makes them go to bed without chocolate pudding. The Poky Little Puppy shows up much later and gets to eat the chocolate pudding. Next day, there's another sign saying, "Don't dig under the fence." They do it again. This time, though, there's a little switch. There's a plot twist. The Poky Little Puppy this time sees a strawberry growing in the middle of the lawn, which doesn't make any sense because strawberries don't grow in a lawn. But anyway, for some reason, the dogs see the strawberry and think, well, Mom's making strawberry shortcake at home. That's not really logical, but they're puppies. But this time, what happens is the four puppies do get to eat the shortcake, because when they get home, they realize they've been bad, so they fill in the hole. And so when the Poky Little Puppy shows up, he can't get in because the hole's been filled out. And so he has to wander around until he finds a hole in the fence and gets in. And by the time he gets there, all the food's gone, and he has to go to bed without any shortcake. So karma finally catches up with the Poky Little Puppy. And the next day, the Poky Little Puppy sees this huge sign put up that says, "No more desserts ever if you dig under this fence again." So that puts an end to the puppy's adventures out in the wide world. And that's basically the story. Very simple story. Now, why is this book so popular? Why has it sold 15 million copies over an 80-year period? It's never gone out of print. It's one of the golden little books that you always find on sale. Whenever they have golden little books, there's always the Poky Little Puppy. Why is this book so popular? I have two theories, and they're both connected. One involves the illustrations. Gustav Tengren drew all these little puppies with large, oversized, round heads. If you look at the title page here, you can see, excuse me, you can see all of the puppies have these big, enlarged, round heads. And he probably picked that up from his time at the Disney studio, because in a lot of the Disney cartoon shorts in the 1930s, a lot of the animals were drawn with large heads and big eyes. And that we know that from psychological studies, that large round heads are associated with children, with infants. And it triggers feelings, subconscious feelings of happiness and tenderness and joy. And so little kids see this picture of this little dog, and they just say, I want to have that book. So I think a lot of the popularity has to do with Tengren's illustrations. But another reason that these books has lasted so long and been so popular is the story is not dated in any way. There's nothing in the story was written in the middle of World War II, but there's nothing in the book that dates it at all. You could read this book today and think it's a contemporary children's book. You could have read it in the 70s or the 80s or the 50s and had the same feeling. And 10 years from now, when kids read this book, they'll think it's a contemporary book. There's nothing in it to date. It's a timeless story. There's always going to be puppies. They're always going to try to get out, and escape, dig through. That's just something dogs do. So I think the illustrations and the timelessness of the story is a big part of the reason why the Poky Little Puppy has lasted for over 80 years and probably will continue to sell years and years from now. The book is The Poky Little Puppy. The author is Jeanette Sebring Lowry. And this has been another Man in Gray book review. Thanks for watching.